and has members who are 32 schools in Harlow. One time it used to be every single education institution in Harlow. It's a bit less than that now, but it's still the bulk of primary, secondary and AP in Harlow. And our purpose, in a sense, is to support our schools in their work and try and improve educational outcomes. And given that one of the perspectives, as I understand it, of the ambassador's role, which is to, in a sense, improve the image of Harlow, there's a few people here who know that if we go back 15 years to similar kinds of discussions through the campus about perceptions in Harlow, my memory is that there were sort of 7 specifics that were highlighted as issues that were holding back the development of the town. One of them was perceptions about educational outcomes. Well, the one thing we can actually say now, if it's not obvious to you already, is that that has been completely turned around in the last 10 years, okay? You have outcomes across all stages, from the youngest children to post-16, achieving at least in line with national averages, in many cases above national averages, and you only have one school, one very small primary school in Harlow that is not rated Ofsted good. So that's at least one thing, okay? Okay, this building, this complex, we have a lease on this since 2005. The freehold of this is owned by the District Council, and the name Study Centre comes from the fact that when this was all refurbed and the housing for the elderly was put in, okay, that was 1986. It became as a centre for the study of Harlow. That's why it's called the Harlow Study Centre. So it was run by the council as a visitor centre, and you could look at the story of the development of Harlow, pre-Newtown, through Newtown.
Harlow, more than 30 of those. And so many of you who know KO Park, which is now where we are based, was actually formerly an STC or STL or Nortel Labs that you will have known it as. And Harlow came and was the location for the laboratories that came out of New Southgate in London in 1959. And that's the place where, now called KO Park because of the invention there of the optic fibre at the laboratory. So it's been a place of innovation. We've been a business of innovation, and in the 1960s this business that was making fledgling electronics needed to sell them, and so they formed a business called Electronic Services, and at the beginning we were selling capacitors and resistors and wire products that were very basic electronics, and we sold mainly our own company's electronics, and we were so good at it that we started selling other companies' electronics. So that's how our business was formed. We went through a number of ownership changes because of what happened with the businesses who we were working with. So from STC, we became part of Nortel, and then Nortel, as they struggled with how they absorbed the various businesses that they'd acquired, sold us to a company called Harlow Electronics. And they later sold us to our electronics in the 1998. And so we've become part of this very large corporate organisation that actually made many acquisitions all over Europe. The offices here in Harlow have many people who, like me, who've lived through that journey with the company. We're now one of the major European hubs for our EMEA organisation. And what that means is we've got 4 hubs around Europe. We're headquartered out of Germany, which is the biggest electronics market in Europe, in Frankfurt, but Harlow, Milan, Germany, and in Gdansk in Poland are our 4 big centres. And so from there, we do many of the functions that support all of the other businesses all over the world.
Hare Street Primary School. I came into this building when I was at Hare Street Primary School for the first time. And I later came here for the 50th anniversary of Harlow as a study project. I went on to Burntmill School and then on to Harlow College. I then moved to Church Langley, which is part of Harlow, despite some of the websites. My son now goes to Henry Moore Primary School. From a professional perspective, I've spent 23 years working in Harlow Town Centre specifically, Harlow Town Centre specifically. I started working in the newsagents, delivering papers from Chocker News, which is just off Market Square. I worked in a number of retailers. I did my work experience in Scope, which was on Turner Street. I worked in McDonald's on Broadwalk for 2.5 years and spent 15 years kind of building my career at the Harvey Centre before moving on to the Water Gardens as centre manager. The reason that I'm telling you all these things is not because you're interested in what I do and who I am, but because my story isn't uncommon to Harlow. There's a huge percentage of people that live and work in Harlow and don't tend to venture out very far, which then leads on to the conversation about Harlow Town Centre specifically and who we are and what we do, which people perhaps, because they've lived in Harlow all their lives, because they don't venture out a great deal, they don't necessarily see the broader picture of what goes on in Harlow that's great. So the two main shopping centres in Harlow are the Water Gardens and the Harvey Centre. Harvey Centre opened in 1982, the Water Gardens in 2004. Like most, and it's not generalism, most shopping centres have large institutional owners, and then they employ managing agents to manage the properties for them. So the Harvey Centre is owned by Sapphire Harlow Nominees Limited, and they employ Savills to manage their property for them. And the Water Gardens is owned by Aberdeen Standard Investments, and they employ JLL to manage the property for them. So in terms of Aberdeen Standard Investments, the owners of the Water Gardens, they're one of the largest retail investment and asset management companies in the world. They're also an American Fortune 500 company, ranked 189th, so slightly lower down the list. They have £508.1 billion worth of assets in the UK alone, so a huge property ownership company. They employ JLL. JLL are an American-based, my explanation, Fortune 500, was about JLL rather than ASI, apologies. Fortune 500 company of 189, have 90,000 employees worldwide. And between JLL and Savills, they are ranked number 1 and 2 in the retail property management market. So you're working in Harlow, we're working in Harlow with 1 and 2 of the biggest, most well-known retail management companies. So if we don't know what we're doing, if we don't understand the retail market, then nobody does.